presidential candidate, Pete Buttigieg.
We're going to be seeing the Woodward this year.
Okay.
It is. Quitting.
Thank you. Thank you, Virginia Democrats. Let's hear it one more time from my fellow Midwesterner, my competitor, and my friend, Senator Amy Klobuchar.
Oh, that's nice.
Thank you for your leadership in the United States Senate, and thank you to everyone here for demonstrating what a forward-looking, unified, fearless Democratic Party looks like. We are proud of you.
That's what I like. He's there for the Democrats.
Mayor Stoney, you've got a beautiful city here, and we're proud to be in Richmond.
So they have a Democratic mayor.
Chairwoman Susan Swecker, thank you for showing that even somebody a little bit younger than me can be a fantastic leader. To the members of the DNC, the members of Congress, and of the Virginia legislature, Senators Warner and Kane, former Governor McAuliffe, thank you so much for showing the way to the rest of the country. Since announcing for president, I spent a lot of time in this Commonwealth, visiting old friends and making new ones, and tonight I feel like I've made a whole bunch of new friends. I know Virginia is for lovers has a nice ring to it, but it's starting to feel to me like Virginia is for Buttigieg. And you make me feel right at home. Now, last time I was here campaigning, it was last year to help some extraordinary women we saw running for Congress. Jennifer Wexton, Abigail Spanberger, and Elaine Luria. And it's pretty fun to go up to them today and say, hello, Congresswoman, because they are making us proud alongside everybody in the delegation here. And as a Democrat from a red state, I believe we need to stand together and demonstrate that there is no place in this country where Democrats can't win. Not one state and not one Commonwealth. Just ask some of the leaders we've met. Haya Ayla, Jennifer Carroll Foy, Danica Rome, people whose victories have sent ripples across this entire country. And there's one more thing, because I know the primary is not that far in the rearview mirror, but Virginia Democrats are demonstrating the party unity that our entire Democratic Party will need to show in 2020 in order to win the White House, and I thank you for that. Now, there's a lot of talk about 2020, as you might expect. But I'm very glad that we are here to talk about how important 2019 is. Our conservative friends spent decades building up majorities in state and local office. And now it's time for Democrats to demonstrate that we know that we will never again treat the presidency like it's the only office that matters. We are here not just to join the conversation, but to change the conversation. And changing the conversation means making it not only about our policies, which are the best policies, but about our values. And don't let anybody tell you that values is only something to think about on the conservative side of the aisle. Don't let anybody tell you that freedom is a conservative value. It is an American value, and we know it. It's just that we know there's more to freedom than getting government out of the way. Sometimes freedom means building up the possibilities for a better life. You're not free if you don't have health care, and you can't start a small business because you're afraid leaving your old job means losing your coverage. Health care is part of freedom. Freedom comes by way of organizing, which is why we stand with organized labor, the fight for 15 in a union for every worker in this land. Freedom comes by way of education. which is why it's time for a Secretary of Education who believes in public education. And it is twice as important at a moment like this, with the assaults on freedom, that male politicians stand up with women and say women's reproductive rights are an American freedom. Freedom isn't a conservative value, and neither is patriotism. We are in a commonwealth. I almost said state, but I've been told it's not a good idea. We are in a commonwealth. I'm just getting that off my chest because I'm going to slip up and do it at one point, and I hope you'll forgive me. But in this commonwealth, we have seen more than your share of people who serve in civilian and military capacities, local, state, and federal, people who serve one another. And when I went in to that aircraft that was going to take me to Bagram Airfield, the flag on my shoulder was not a Republican flag, it was an American flag. And that flag, among other things, represented the idea of free speech and political dissent, the idea that all of us could disagree, that you could criticize the president, that the press could cover the president critically, and no one would ever question their loyalty to the republic for which it stands. So let's not give an inch on the issue of security, because we're the ones who know there's a lot more to security than putting up a wall from sea to shining sea. Security means protecting from 21st century threats, cyber security, election security. And as Virginia sadly knows all too well, you're not keeping this country safe if you're not prepared to stand up and defend us from violent white nationalism claiming lives here and around the world. From Virginia Tech to Virginia Beach, we know you're not serious about security if you don't have a plan for common sense gun reform. And yes, in an era of climate disruption, it is time to treat climate change like the security issue that we all know that it is. Freedom doesn't belong to a political party, and neither does the flag. And while we're at it, God does not belong to the Republican Party. We know that it is the sacred obligation of anyone in office or seeking it to stand equally for people of any religion and people of no religion. But for those of us who are motivated in part by religious teachings, it is worth reflecting that pretty much every faith tradition we know of counsels us to support the marginalized, to heal the sick, to lift up the poor, to welcome the immigrant, and to do it with humility and decency. So don't let them tell you that faith is a Republican value either. Now, if we want to deliver on our values, the good news is Americans are with us. People agree with us on the issues. People agree with us on these values. The problem is our democracy has been twisted out of shape to where even when we have the majority, it is hard to get our agenda through. So we're just going to have to go out there and fix up our democracy. That means getting money out of politics. It means fair districts so politicians can't pick their voters anymore. And it means that every U.S. citizen, whether you live in Virginia or Indiana or the District of Columbia or Puerto Rico, deserves full, fair political representation in this nation. And yes, in the world's greatest democracy, we might even go so far as to begin choosing our nation's leader by just counting up all the votes and giving it to the person who got the most. To me, that seems like a pretty common sense thing to do. Now let's talk strategy for just a second, because I'm worried. I'm worried about how we make sure we win. And even though this president is deservedly unpopular, there is always a risk, a serious risk, that he could win again. How does he do it? He does it if we look too much like more of the same. So, surprising as it is, the riskiest thing we could do is try to play it safe. We have to show that we understand there's no going back to normal, but the chaos of this moment makes us no better off, and our vision is a better vision for the future of America. Remember that a president like the one we've got doesn't get within cheating distance of the Oval Office if everything's going okay in our economy and our democracy. That's why we've got to fix it. We've got to fix an economy where a rising tide does not lift all boats. And we got to fix a democracy where far too often politically and racially motivated voter suppression changes the answer. We must put that to an end. We got to do something different. And in that vein, I would argue there's something to be said for nominating a middle-class, Midwestern, millennial mayor to take the nomination and win back the White House. I know it's not traditional, but why wouldn't we want a mayor at a time when we're trying to get Washington to look more like our best-run cities and towns before it starts going the other way around? Maybe somebody from the industrial Midwest, somebody who has seen the challenges that such communities face, but knows that there is no such thing as an honest politics for our communities that revolves around the word again. Why not do something completely different? That's what we're about. And I believe that with a completely different message, we can finally break the spell that this president has cast over this country. I know it's hard to look away from the show. I don't even know what kind of show to call it. Is it a game show? Is it a reality show? Maybe it's a horror show. Whatever it is, if we're on his show, we're not winning. Which is why instead of trying to compete with him on his terms, we're simply going to change the channel. When the president launches his tweets and taunts, what are we going to do? Change the channel. When he tries to bring us down to his level, to command our attention and use our attacks as fuel to go stronger, what are we going to do? Change the channel. When he tries to distract us from the real issues that Americans face, what are we going to do? We're going to change the channel. Because politics isn't about the show. This isn't in my speech, but I'm going to get personal with you for a second. Tomorrow's Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. Tomorrow is also my first wedding anniversary. It's impossible for me to think of one without thinking of the other. Not only because Chasten and I hope to become fathers, but because this is my first Father's Day without my own father who passed away earlier this year. And the reason I want to mention this is that in those last days with him in the hospital, one of the best things I had going for me, in addition to things like Medicare that made sure that our family wouldn't be financially destroyed by his illness, in addition to faith and an amazing faith community that was there for me every step of the way, there's one more thing I had going for me. Someone who loved me, who could be at the side of his father-in-law in the hospital because in the eyes of the law, as well as in our hearts, he was my lawfully married husband. And I bring this up because that's what politics is really about. In the most dramatic and vulnerable moments of our lives, and in those most everyday moments when you go to get a clean, safe glass of drinking water out of the faucet, or when you drive over a pothole, government isn't about what happens on TV, it's about what happens in our lives. That's why these choices matter. That's why we have politics, that's why we have government, and we have got to bring it back to a politics of the everyday. And it's got to be a politics of the future. Because, God willing, I will be there in the 2050s when we look back at the 2020s and decide whether or not we did the right thing to not only win the presidency, but win the era and set America on a better course for the balance of this half century. And if we get it right, we'll be living in a world when we hear of a storm coming through, we don't have to wonder whether it's part of an accelerating pattern of extreme weather caused by climate change, because we'll know we rose to meet the challenge of climate. It'll be a world when we have an election, we know that the U.S. is doing everything it can to keep that election safe, and that the outcome of that election will reflect the will of the people. And I want it to be a future where I can say to my kids or my grandkids, you know, that president who's in office right now is from a different party than mine, and I disagree, and I didn't vote for that president, but I can also tell you she is a good person and she's doing the best that she can. The world we could have, the world that this chaotic moment is holding us back from, is a world that we can only build together. But I'm pretty sure with the energy in this room, we can start building it together, not in 2020, but right now in 2019. Never forget that running for office is an act of hope. Giving money to somebody running for office is an act of hope. Coming to a dinner with an awful lot of speakers who are running for office is an act of hope. You are living the hope of our time. Are you not hopeful this evening, even in this challenging time we live in? Are you ready to unite and win not only the election, but the era that is ahead of us? Are you ready to change the channel to something completely different? Then I'm pretty sure we can't lose, and I can't wait to see you on the trail. And
All right.